One reckless move by one man can shake the very foundations of the global economy. And today, we are witnessing that unfold right before our eyes. On April 2, 2025, U.S. President Donald Trump made a dramatic return to the spotlight by announcing a sweeping policy move: the reintroduction of presidential tariffs, not just on a few nations but on more than 90 countries across the globe. In his characteristic theatrical style, Trump declared, "Many countries have ripped us off left and right. But now, it's our turn to do the ripping." That one statement sent shockwaves through global financial markets. Within days, stock markets around the world plummeted. By April 7, the global economy had lost trillions of dollars, marking one of the most significant financial crashes in recent memory. What exactly happened? Is this just political drama, or are we looking at the early signs of a global economic crisis? To truly understand the weight of this moment, we need to break down what tariffs actually are. A tariff is essentially a tax imposed on imported goods. It doesn't directly affect individuals, but it increases the cost of goods entering a country. For instance, when India imports an iPhone, a tariff, say 15%, is added, making the phone more expensive for Indian consumers. Tariffs serve two primary purposes: they generate government revenue and they protect domestic industries by making foreign products less competitive in local markets. When used strategically, tariffs can help local industries develop, as seen in the case of South Korea's rice industry. But when applied blindly or for political showmanship, they can backfire severely, something the world is now beginning to see. Trump targeted China first, slapping a massive 34% tariff on Chinese goods. China wasted no time retaliating with its own 34% tariff on American products. Trump, doubling down, threatened an additional 50% if China didn't back off. China didn't blink. The US followed through. China answered again. Before long, tariffs had escalated to 125% on both sides. This wasn't a negotiation, this was a full-blown trade war. And like any war, there were casualties, not just in China and the US, but globally, as ripple effects spread through supply chains and international markets. Here's the thing: trade wars don't just hurt the target country. They end up damaging both sides. Let's say India exports medicine to South Korea. If South Korea slaps a 100% tariff to protect its own pharmaceutical industry, India suffers. But when India retaliates with tariffs of its own, suddenly both countries are losing. Smart diplomacy involves dialogue, compromise, and strategic decision-making. But Trump took the opposite approach: maximum pressure with minimal planning. The motivation? Trump argues it's about reducing America's trade deficit, the gap between what the US imports versus what it exports. For example, if the US imports $2 billion worth of goods from China but only exports $1 billion, the trade deficit is $1 billion. While trade deficits are common and not inherently dangerous, Trump presented it as a national emergency. Using emergency powers, he imposed tariffs across the board, not just on countries with deficits, but also on those with balanced trade relations. His method for calculating tariffs was bizarre. He took the trade deficit percentage, divided it by total imports, halved the result, and used that number as the tariff rate. Even more bizarre, he mistakenly treated this percentage as the other country's tariff rate on the US, which was completely inaccurate. The absurdity didn't stop there. Trump imposed tariffs on uninhabited islands in the Southern Ocean, Heard Island and McDonald Island, territories with no people, no trade, just penguins. Yes, even penguins became part of Trump's economic battlefield. In response, other nations retaliated intelligently and tactically. China, the EU, and Canada imposed tariffs on industries and regions in the US that formed the core of Trump's political support base. China targeted corn farmers and the auto industry. Canada went after poultry and appliances. The EU slapped tariffs on American steel and meat exports. The goal was clear: hit Trump where it hurts most. But who really bears the brunt of these escalating tariff wars? Ordinary citizens. In today's globalized economy, almost everything we use, from smartphones to chocolate, involves international components or is fully imported. When tariffs go up, the cost of these goods rises. Businesses either pass the cost on to consumers or cut costs in damaging ways. Even YouTuber Mr. Beast highlighted the impact on his business. His chocolates, produced in the US, rely on imported cacao beans. With tariffs making those imports more expensive, even local manufacturing became less viable. This isn't the first time protectionist policies have backfired in US history. In 1890, President William McKinley raised tariffs, and by 1893, the country spiraled into a severe depression with 25% unemployment. In 1930, President Herbert Hoover introduced the infamous Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. The world retaliated. Global trade collapsed by 66%. The result? The Great Depression deepened, lasting until World War II. Only after the war did free trade return, led largely by the US through institutions like the World Trade Organization (WTO), which aimed to reduce global tariffs and stabilize the world economy. Fast forward to 2025, and Trump is steering America in the opposite direction, pushing unpredictability into the global market. Allies and rivals alike no longer know whether the US can be trusted. Even Singapore's Prime Minister warned
to take a bigger hit than others because of our heavy reliance on trade. The last time the world experienced something like this was in the 1930s. Trade wars escalated into armed conflict and eventually the Second World War. No one can say how the current situation will unfold in the coming months or years, but we must be clear-eyed about the dangers that are building up in the world. Global institutions are getting weaker. International norms are eroding. More and more countries will act based on narrow self-interest and use force or pressure to get their way. This is the harsh reality.
In a strange twist, on April 9th, Trump suspended tariffs for 90 days, but only for countries that didn't retaliate. China was still penalized. One day tariffs rise, the next day they drop. Markets crash and rebound unpredictably. Meanwhile, economists, analysts, and citizens are left wondering, what exactly is Trump trying to achieve? Some suspect manipulation, others fear incompetence, but the consequences? They're real and they're affecting the world. So, what do you think? Is this just political theater? Or the beginning of something far more dangerous, a global recession, or worse? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this explanation helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into global affairs. Until next time, stay aware, stay informed.